What's up, everybody? My name is Jesse, and welcome to the Jess Takes a Village podcast, where we focus on regular people who have used their education, whether it be formal, vocational, or even life experiences, to propel their lives in a positive direction. Hopefully, everybody's having a good day, afternoon, or night. To my left, also known as your right, we have literally one of the most responsible human beings that I know, Mr. Get It Done. There's never a task that this man cannot do. This guy was the original Instacart before there was an Instacart. Ladies and gentlemen, to my left, let's welcome Alex to the village.
Thank you. Appreciate the time that you guys taking to watch this video, and thank you for having me over, man.
Absolutely. As you guys know, every guest is a little special. And everybody's special for their own particular reasons. Not to sound like a teacher, an all-inclusive teacher, but this guy exudes responsibility. And to have responsibility as a superpower is something I've always wanted to ask you. How long have you been this responsible? I mean, Alex, how are you such an organized person? And I want to start from there because I feel like you can't say responsibility without mentioning Alex. So, how long have you been so responsible? Like, take me as far back as you can remember.
I think that there's been a level of responsibility that I've had since I was a child. You know, I see my parents growing up.
Right.
You know, the type of style, especially when you have parents that are immigrants that came here with nothing, worked at factories, ultimately had enough money to save up to start their own garment factory. And,
Right.
you know, there was always a level of responsibility where it wasn't a lot at the time, but it was like, hey, we're going to bring you to work, but I'm going to be working and I'm going to need you to eat at this time. I'll provide you the food, but I need to make sure that you finish it. So I would say it started really young. I mean, 5, 6, as far as I could remember, where I could take orders. And then at the time, I didn't think of it like that. But, you know, it you know, subliminally, like when things happen in progression, you tend to sort of cognitively get that task done without even knowing it sometimes.
Absolutely, because I feel like at that point the task has now become routine.
Yeah.
So for me, my correlation to what you've experienced was, I remember at the age of like 8, my mom took me downstairs and she was like, this is how you wash clothes. This is how you iron clothes. You are now responsible, right? Because she goes, when you wake up in the morning, I don't need you running me down that you need clothes. You need to prepare these things the night before. So because of that, that routine has shaped who I am and what I am as a person. And I feel like it's kind of the same thing with you, because it's like at an early age, there's an emphasis of scheduling
Right.
in your household and the importance of when to do things. So little Alex has a schedule. He's eating. How many siblings do you have?
I have one older sister and 2 older brothers, and they're up the ladder by 11 years and so forth. So there's a big gap.
So you're like you're the baby in the family.
I am the youngest of my siblings, and yeah, I mean,
you're the only one born here too, right?
No, me and my sister and my brother. I think the only one that was born in Honduras was my brother Juan, the oldest, who's 52.
Shout out Honduras.
Where
Yeah,
it's 52 right now. So
absolutely,
it's a big age gap when you look at it.
Do you think that affected like a lot of the relationships you had with them growing up, or did you just always look at them as, these are my older siblings?
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that, and there's a dynamic there that I could say that isn't so spoken upon.
Right.
And I'm going to go with age, right? And again, traditionally, when you meet your friends or family members who tend to have siblings, the traditional sense is that the siblings are either a few years apart, right?
Absolutely.
There could be some sort of rivalry there. There could be some sort of period in time where there's just, you know, the agendas aren't there. So there's either a clash. I was very lucky that, you know, keep in mind, at my birth, my sister was 11. My brother they were already teenagers. As far as I'm concerned, they had a sense of maturity to treat me really well. Hence why I have a great relationship with my
Yeah,
siblings.
your bond is something special. Every family event, every birthday, they're always there. You
But
know?
I don't. We don't argue.
No, you don't.
I mean, we'll argue about maybe some
Yeah, the
politics,
little minute
but
things.
what
Yeah.
I'm saying is that the level of respect, the fact that we will always acknowledge, despite the fact that we disagree with each other,
Right.
that we're still siblings at the end of the day, that's never questioned. It's a
Right.
constant. It's always there.
So there's a good family dynamic when it comes to you. So
Yeah.
so it's like the responsibility plus the close bond with your siblings. It's like it's really shaping who you are as you go in your process of maturity and you're entering into your teenage years and adulthood. So I guess they're looking for you.
Yes, they are.
Half
It's actually my brother,
Let's see that.
actually my
Look,
brother.
look at the coincidence. Who's that? Wonka?
Jose.
Yeah, Jose. But it's so let's continue. So I'm looking at it like this. You're living in Brooklyn. You're in Crown Heights.
Yeah.
You're in this building. Your dad is the super.
Yeah.
What's that like having a dad as a super?
He's always there.
Yeah, literally.
He's always there, man. It's you know, I could say this that
Yeah.
I would come home, somebody's always there. And listen, granted, he was in and out, fixing apartments or doing what
Absolutely.
his job delegated him to do, but he was always there. You know, and if he wasn't there, I had an extended family at the time. My grandfather was living with us in the
Right.
basement. I hope the landlord's not seeing this. He was living
Yeah.
I'll get to that in a different segment, but my parents are notorious for like giving that olive branch to people, considering how they came here. But
Absolutely.
you know, it was either between my grandfather, a family friend, or my dad, and sometimes even my mom. But the point is that I came along in life at a point where, to an extent, my family was somewhat established in routine. So somebody was always there as a child, you know.
Do you think that makes you? I don't know if I'm out of line for asking, but do you think having your parents always there in a routine, do you think that's the reason why you're so militant as a person? I don't want to describe you as being militant, but you're very like.
No, I know what you're trying to get at.
Like I had told you the okay, yo, we're gonna start recording at 7 was the time I gave you, and you text me back. Listen, I'm gonna be there at 6:45, but that's always how you've been. So it's just like, is that because of that or?
Yeah, it could be, man. I mean, you have to take in consideration that, again, we're talking about a family dynamic where it's like, hey, listen, I have to get to work. I will spend time with you. Let's delegate some time. It's not to sound cold or calculated, because the time spent was quality time, right? With my mom or my dad. They always made sure to have dinner with me. They always made sure to be there with me throughout any sort of segment of my life. But I don't know. You know, I don't really look at being on time or just doing things as told anything other than just doing it, right? Because we have two options, right? We could either do whatever we want to do or do however we want to do, right? That's the big dilemma that everybody faces in life, right? Whether you start work or you go to school, you could either do school however they guide you or advise you to do school, and it might work for you, or you can do it to a manner that actually works for you and benefits you, right? Every experience is very different. At the end of the day, you know, it's up to you to figure out how that works out in your life. So, I mean, to others, I might seem sort of like on time or militant or anything like that. I don't even think about it.
Yeah, because it's like first nature.
It just shows up.
Yeah.
You know, you told me to be here, I'll be here. I obviously came here a little early, expecting some setup time, because I don't know, just common sense would, and I use that very.
Remember, not all common sense is common.
I use that very vaguely. Yeah. Common sense for me would say, well, there probably is a setup process. There probably is some lighting. There probably is some sound check. There probably is some testing of video and ergonomics. Right, the ergonomics of this setting that we're doing this meeting on. So, yeah, you know.
So, I'm looking at it as a great relationship. The things you're doing is just natural to you. What does education, rather, what does school mean to you? What does high school mean to you at this point in your life?
High school, that's a good question. What does it mean to me at this life? Um,
So tell me, like, the teenage definition versus your adult definition.
I think that to an extent, the teenage definition with me, and again, I say this very proudly because not a lot of students out there have this sense of motivation. But I
Yeah.
think the teenage definition for me was not to fail my parents. That's crazy, right? As a young man to say,
Pressure.
yeah,
Jesus.
not to fail my
Yeah.
parents, right? Because ultimately, I would hear it. Obviously, when I would do something that was not in line, or
Mm-hmm.
they would tell me, "Hey, man, we had none of the amenities. Like, I came here to this country with nothing." You know what? My cousin was supposed to pick me up at the airport. She never showed up. Some random Puerto Rican lady back in the 1960s said, "Hey, you need somewhere to stay," and I took a chance. And she ended up staying with this Puerto Rican lady who ended up getting her a job at a sweatshop, living in a room, then paying rent. And the only thing my mother could say was Frankfurter, which was hot dogs. She ate hot dogs for 2 months outside of work.
Sheesh.
So, that's a scary situation. And I've never had that sort of predicament happen to me where you're somewhere completely lost or foreign or new and you're trying to sort of find your way in there. So it was that pressure. And I wouldn't even say it was pressure. It was just more like, I want to make my parents proud because
Wow.
I acknowledge the fact that they love me and they care for me and they try their best. And, not having everything doesn't necessarily mean you don't have everything, right? Um,
That is like a what? Like that's a very like intricate way to like process what high school means to you as like a 16, 17, 18-year old. So it's like if you thought about that at that age, how do you view it now? Because you gotta be, listen, you gotta be really, I don't even want to curse, but you really have to be really, really, really freaking mature to have that mindset that early in life. Like, I
well,
don't want to fail my parents as a first generation kid to, immigrant. So, like, what's the adult mindset?
it's hard, man. I have Lila. She's 8. She's eventually gonna be in high school, but she does have older cousins.
Lila's his
And
daughter, people.
yes, my kid.
Yeah.
But I do have cousins that are in high school, and I've seen
Yeah.
them, and I don't really want to say I've seen it sort of degrade in terms of quality of people. But you know what I have noticed? I know, but what I have seen
Mm-hmm.
is that the social structure of like just people talking to each other is like out of this world. It's so foreign for a lot of kids now. Um, Not only that, just the what is it? The animo, I guess the encouragement to just be involved in things. It's come to like a situation where it's become a niche thing, right? Like you talk to kids, some don't even want to talk to you. They're just like, whatever. Yeah, and I'm just like, it's wild, man. But it's good that you bring that question up. And maybe if my cousin watches this, I have an older cousin who has a son,
Yeah.
and we were at the house the other day, and my mom, we don't see him that often, but my mom was telling him in Spanish, "Hey, you're growing up. You look like a young man." Giving him a compliment in Spanish. And the first thing, I mean, this kid was wearing sunglasses like Puff Daddy back in the 2000s. This kid was wearing an overall. Looked like he had a pamper underneath that stuff. Listen, I had jokes galore to really cut ass on him, but I wasn't
Yeah.
gonna do that, right? He's my little cousin.
Yeah.
But what really shocked me was the fact that he is in high school. His mother's Dominican. His father's obviously my cousin. He's Honduran. His father was actually born in Honduras. And he tells my mom, nah, we don't do that over here. English
You don't
only.
do what? What?
I looked at myself and I said, yo, I've been to Jersey City plenty of times. I know the Latin community there. I know the Caribbean community there. I know the black community there. However you want to put it. I know there are a lot of people from all over the world. Pakistan, Desis. Like, listen, Jersey City is just as diverse as New York City.
Yeah.
And the fact that he said that, man, I looked at him and I wanted to smack fire in that kid. But again, it goes to show the type of quality. So it's hard. I can't answer that question because I don't know what it is. I'm so confused with what exactly is going on with social norms in high school that it's an anomaly to me.
Being someone on the inside, right? One thing I noticed, the school I'm at is very diverse. All these kids are from like Central Asia, North Africa, East Africa, and to me, a lot of them were born in their mother country, and when they come outside, it's like a beautiful thing because they ask them, like, "Hey, you bought the ball?
Yeah.
You bought the ball?" Now, obviously, growing up in Brooklyn, I'm thinking, "What are they about to play basketball?" No, they come with the soccer ball. As soon as they run outside, everybody make teams, and they're all running up and down and playing. But it's just like those are their norms because of where they come from.
Right.
Here, when you look at a normal American school lunchroom,
yeah, it's wild, man.
The kids had a party at school the other day, and when we went to parties, we danced.
Absolutely.
All these kids, they put up the phone, they like this, the little TikTok dances. Now, mind you, that's their world. But it's like we've even lost the dancing aspect of what's going on in the world. Like dancing was like.
I've been to a couple of house parties, man. It was fire.
I mean, it was what it was.
It was fire, man.
It was what it was. Especially like they don't understand. And listen, they won't get there in life because I think those days are over. But they don't know the sweaty basements. Oof. They don't know this is all the space you got in the basement. They don't know the girl you want to dance with is all the way over there. I'm making eye contact. The excuse me, miss. I saw you from across the room.
Absolutely.
But it's like they've lost that. And I feel like school plays a bigger part because a lot of these teachers, they don't even talk to the kids anymore. Yeah. They're doing what they're doing. The kids are doing what they're doing. And they'll talk at parent-teacher conference. That's like when the concern pops up.
Well,
so
you know what? Let me ask you on that, since you are on the inside in terms of the quality of teachers, right? And this was a question that I've always asked. I look. I grew up with obviously a lot of Caribbean teachers.
Yeah.
It was you either get it right or you get it wrong. It is what it is, right?
There's no middle ground.
Yeah, and obviously I do dabble in with a little bit of like urban geography, right? In the sense. And when you look at America as a whole and you start distinguishing the difference between suburbs, cities, which would be considered an urban life, and obviously the more outskirt woods or sticks or however people might put it. Yeah. But one thing I've noticed, right? Living in an inner city, I feel like it's almost you would have to make it a mission to not talk to anybody because it's every opportunity that is there. As you walk or as you go down anywhere, or as if you're coming back or whatever the case may be. And I don't want to say that the teachers that I have met in the past, either with Lila or her school, come from very, very different places. And a lot of them have had conversations, and this is no shock to them or not to put any negative connotation towards them, but they come from suburban areas. And when I think of suburban areas, I think of we don't have sidewalks, so we isolate every house in a bubble, which makes that concept of communication, that concept of social groups or norms almost virtually impossible. So if you have somebody with that sort of stigma or dogma that's resilient in them, whether it's sort of like a cognitive dissonance, right? Where they don't know that they're doing that, or maybe they're promoting these ideas, or maybe, and I think in a classroom setting, we're always trying to like get the kids involved, but it's just not the same. When I think that with children, you'd have to go a little bit further. You have to push them.
You do have to go further, but to me, it always goes back to the demographics because where you're located, who you are, where you come from, plays a very vital role. Now, the kids in my class, a lot of them don't speak English.
Right.
A lot of them have to come here and they have to learn English. They have to settle in. They have to get adjusted to society.
Right.
I have a super soft spot for them because I know what it's like. Being bilingual is a plus. 100%. But a lot of them don't realize that at the early ages. They have to be able to speak English to communicate with their friends. I had a student who just came from Uzbekistan, and he only speaks Russian. And I heard over the phone, they called me and it was like, Jess, you got a new student. He's in the office. So, I told the kids, I'm like, yo, yeah, like, we got somebody new coming. Let's go surprise him. So we went down to the office. He's there with his mom. So I tapped the kid on his shoulder, right on the wrong shoulder. So he turns around. So I'm just looking at him. He's looking at me. So I'm looking at him. And I asked him, I was like, Baruski nice? And he was like, duh? I'm like, I asked him, I'm like, you speak Russian? He like, yeah. I'm like, Privyet, как dela? And his like eyes light up. So I was like, hey, come in. So we're all in the hallway and all the kids, they're clapping for him. They're talking to him. Mind you, this is his first day in school, first day in America. No, let's say this is day 3. And this kid was like smiling ear to ear. And I'm just like, he was already shocked at me, obviously for obvious reasons,
Right.
for knowing a little bit of his native tongue. But he's been happy since he's been here. And this is like week 3.5 for him. Like my goal is to make sure he gets some McDonald's so he can really have that, that American boy experience.
Right.
But it's like, I'm able to do that for him. And if so many other teachers are able to do that for their students, then I feel like we're bridging the gap. So from that point, I kind of want to fast forward in your life, because when I met you, I believe you were working at AT&T.
Yeah.
I believe you're working at AT&T.
It was.
And I don't know too many people who still have AT&T, as a matter of fact, but that's neither here nor there. But customer service.
Yeah.
How'd you get into that? What
so
was that like?
So it had some sort of properties of customer service, but it was direct sales. It was
sales. Sorry,
I was straight in sales, man. You know what? R.I.P. man. R.I.P. to Asi. He's the guy who actually taught me how to sell. He passed away. I went to his funeral last year.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P. to Asi, man. It started with, but prior before AT&T, I started working in the aqueduct, selling fake shampoo, bootleg Head and Shoulders. I'm serious. On the weekends, I was 15, 16, going to the aqueduct every weekend on my bike. I met this Guyanese dude called Kemp. Shout out to Kemp, wherever you are. Worked
Probably
there for about
in Queens.
Yo, bro.
That was a joke.
Worked there for about the whole summer, and then I saw an ad. I started college, and I saw an ad on Craigslist at the time, and it was a cell phone store, mom and pop cell phone store in Park Slope. That's where I met Asi. I worked there for 3 years while I went to college, and then an opportunity came up for a corporate position for AT&T. I was already selling AT&T for that mom and pop shop as an indirect dealer, but one of my boys, Q, shout out to Q, worked for AT&T for like 15 years. He's my age. That means he started in like before college, and now he took a severance package, man. He's chilling, man. He just moved back. But what ends up happening is I got the opportunity.
Right.
And man, I murdered it, man. I mean, I was 19 years old making $60K part-time. Which I don't want to say
you selling these people false promises.
Might as well, man. But the point is that the hunger was there. So
I
was still finishing off my college experience while working part-time, traveling to the Bronx, coming back to City Tech, going home, repeat and rinse, right? It was.
You knew you were selling those people promises.
Yeah, it was.
So like, what were you selling exactly?
I was selling cell phone plans. I was there for the first iPhones. That was great. I was there for the first iPhones.
Yeah.
I was there for the first tablets. The first ever I'm not talking about iPads or anything. I'm talking about tablets, Pantera, all these offset brands that people don't know of now, but this is before tablets were ever a thing. I was being tasked, yo, can you push this product? We want to see what we could get with this. And I was there for a few years, man. And
that's I remember you being at AT&T, blue shirt.
Yeah.
So because I know that a lot of kids, students, people all over the world, they're not really good at behind the desk jobs, and let's say a lot of them just have that quality of being a good salesman. What are some like tips that you can tell the people watching right now? What are like some ways that they can improve like their, I don't want to call it selling skills, but what are some ways in which they can pitch better to get more of a response from the customer?
You gotta just you have to be your number one fan. You have to have the motivation for yourself.
Absolutely.
Sales isn't something where somebody's gonna hold your hand. Sales isn't something where somebody says to you, "Great job."
Mm-hmm.
Sales is more of like, "That's a great sale. When are you gonna do the next one?" That's it. You had your 2 seconds of glory, and that could be very this not encouraging to that individual, especially when you're in a
Right.
high pace. The only thing I could do is that remember it's sales. You will run into roadblocks, but like anything else, if you have enough motivation in yourself and you have enough to say, "Yo, it's what's life but a series of obstacles that come every single day from the moment you wake to the moment of sleep, and even sleeping, whether you know it or not, it's an obstacle in a sense, right? What time are you going to wake up?" But if you look at it through that, if you look at it through that perspective, and you say to yourself, "This is just an additional obstacle, and if I'm able to accomplish and overachieve on other obstacles and other aspects in life, what's the difference?"
You're a very methodical thinker.
Yes.
You know, everything is like broken down into like these finite details, you know. I would say with you there's always a plan. So like sales would be perfect for you because there's times we've gone out and what's the word for it? You've done like these things that I've noticed. It's like you're able to analyze the servers before they even get to the table, and you already know how to speak to them to induce certain responses from them.
It's called reading the person.
Yeah, but you see, that to me is a very interpersonal skill because it's like
Is it?
you can, to me, you can read somebody and be completely wrong.
Well, but that's the risk of it.
It is, but
You have to be okay with the risk. I mean, if you think about it, right, and if you look at what you just said,
yeah,
in comparison to what you explained to me a few minutes ago,
yeah,
about your Russians, your
yeah.
Uzbekistan, Uzbekistan,
Yeah,
northern Russia, all day, not too far from Siberia. But the point is, if you take in consideration how you read that scenario,
yeah.
what's the difference?
I would say the difference is with children to me, and I could be wrong. Children don't really shun you for being wrong. You know, there's always a cushion with children because it's like, okay, you know, with adults, it's like, for example, you're walking
Mm-hmm.
and you see a girl and her face is like, she has really bad RBF, you
Right.
know? And for anyone who doesn't know, it means resting face. So it's like, you could be so scared to talk to her. Mind you, the whole time that's just her face.
Right.
You know, so it's just like I don't know. With adults, they're very hard to just what's the word for it? They're very hard to analyze at times.
But you said it in what you
Yeah,
just said. You see there with describing that scenario,
yeah,
there's already a sense of being reserved. You've
absolutely.
already read an extent of that
Oh yeah,
situation.
true.
So my point is like whether you want to think about it or not. Granted, there's some individuals that read the situation a lot
Yeah,
better than others.
true.
It is what it is. Now, let's say you were to talk to that person. I think I think expecting the chances of it going sour, but you can level the risk factor. And what I mean by that is you could really come out your face and say something that would probably be inappropriate to that individual, or knowing whatever experiences you've had in life or understanding how to talk to people based on experience that you've had in life, you could be relatively reserved. You could ask an honest question to mitigate the risk level of that situation escalating. So again, it leads back to the position of what's the difference in that sense, right? Whether you read somebody or not, right? I think we all read people. The difference, I think, what people really do get confused is how much are they willing to risk based on how they react to the situation. That's the situation we're dealing with, right? It's not so much reading people, it's how you respond to reading that situation and how much do you want to put in knowing the risk that come. It's like a water level main. You twist the wheel, you could twist it slightly, you get a little bit of water. You could twist it all the way, you could get a lot of water, or you could just shut it off and wait until that pipe burst. It's up to you.
I'm definitely clipping that for the little Insta reel next week.
No, that's
Because
fine.
it's really all like deep, intricate level things. So with this thought process, like what kind of, obviously you did sales, but like with this methodical way of thinking that you have, what kind of jobs have you always like sought out in life?
Well, it's funny because I always used to say that I've always been in a position of sales. And I would always say that based on my experience, um, I would always be in sales, right?
Right.
And then obviously now, for the first time ever, past couple of years, I'm not in sales.
Can you like share like what is it you do for a living with the audience?
So I'm a territory account rep for a global company that manufactures and pools sustainable equipment to move merchandise, product, medicine around the world.
You gotta say that in English now.
It's basically logistics, but I'm gonna break it down. I deal with the manufacturing of pallets,
Mm-hmm.
those pallets being pooled.
Mm-hmm.
Pooled, a fancy word for being rented